We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Welcome to Toward Anarchy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Michael Storm, your host, and as always, it's just great to get to come and hang out with you and share with you a little bit of my world and take in a little bit of the world as it is surrounding us and binding with us and joining together like the force. We're all in this thing. We all may be having our own various little experiences, but we are all in it together, and we can all get along, and we can all play the same little game here and all win at it at the same time. And that's the kind of thing that I like to come here and talk about. That's the kind of thing that I like to share with you. Just an idea like that's even possible, that we can all win, that there doesn't really have to be any losers. There's always going to be some losers, because there are just a lot of people who are losers, not because they're not winning. There are a lot of people who win. They have a lot, and they've received a lot, and appear to do well in life, who are still a bunch of losers. A lot of people like that. Absolutely. And so there's a lot to talk about today, and I have a lot on my mind, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get through it all, because we have this wonderful conversation with Dr. Dean Lloyd that we have to get in here as well. It's not just me and you. We have a guest today. It's our good friend, Dr. Dean Lloyd, and we will chat with him in 2 seconds. Where right now, wherever you're at, wherever you're finding me, click that like button, tap it, smash it, all those euphemisms for just getting the thing to react to you and let us know that you're out there. Let me know that you're out there. It's one of the biggest single biggest things that you can do to support the show is just click that like button. It's more important than ever, in fact, especially with the way YouTube just changed their rating system for video watching, and it affects long-form content more like my own, more than it does short-form content like most people, the Reels and those things that people are flipping through, the TikToks, that short-form stuff, and so the like is more important than ever. This just happened within the last couple of days that they announced these changes and what they'll be doing and how they're counting, how quickly someone is counted as a view, even if they only view a very short period of time. And it's already information that's available out there, but it's frustrating to keep up with. And it's nice to know that the short ones are really eliminated for you. It's just a big change, just something that they haven't done before. And there's a reason behind it, and we don't have time to talk about it. We really don't. Just click that like button for me. Trust me, because we'll get into the conversation today. We have the third part of the conversation that Dr. Lloyd and I have been into here for a little bit, about getting to the heart of the matter. And so that is, when you're into that, you're not going to be thinking about, oh, I need to remember to like this. So they get the response, the credit, the knowledge, the thank you, all of it. It's all of those things wrapped up into one little thing. Subscribe and follow along at Toward Anarchy, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. If you're ever in Topeka, Kansas, stop by the store and say hi. Amazing Fantasies is my comic book shop. And you can always visit towardanarchy.com as well. Episode 3632 is what this will be, and you'll find information about my guest facilitator and healer, Dr. Dean Lloyd. EvolvingTheSpecies.com is where you can find him at most times. And Cruising the Epiphany Highway by Am Rosen is a book that is available there at the website, and it's a book that we will often refer to. Dr. Lloyd will often be reading a passage, sharing a passage with it, because it's a wonderfully enlightened, fun book to read. And you can also join us on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, it's Wednesday right now. We just finished recording the live show, actually, which you won't be hearing this until at least Saturday across the network. But we just finished a live show on the network. We do that every Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's called Your Health and Mine. It's live. We take phone calls. We answer your questions. Well, Dr. Lloyd answers your questions. I just I make terrible jokes and incorrectly answer important questions, but that's neither here nor there. The important thing is that we're there for you, for your health, every Wednesday, doing that live across the network. Republic Broadcasting, support Republic Broadcasting. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and click that donate button. Just a click or two away from that, you are making one-time donation, regular donation, however much you want, any amount, and it's just a fantastic thing that you can do. It's something that I do. I support Republic Broadcasting. I've used that donate button. I know what it is to make a regular donation, and to take to pay the extra too, to kick in a couple extra bucks for the processing fees. republicbroadcasting.org. Proud to be a member of that little family there. It's an elite family, and but that doesn't mean exclusory family either. We're not leaving anybody out. Dr. Lloyd, we have been talking about this Heart of the Matter thing for a little while now, and it's fun. It's fantastic. I love it. I love the directed approach, because a lot of the years that we've been doing this, we just kind of come together and we chat, and you have a general thing you want to talk about, and I just kind of chime in and complain about how much of my food you're trying to take away, and how you're trying to ruin my life. And this it's just great to have a direction. And we've talked about this since we started doing the live show, and we've been doing that, having a direct. And I've done it myself in this show, where I've redirected the energies to more consistent topic conversation, with the individuals, yourself included, people like that, my guests, but also just my regular topics, and where I concentrate on just kind of one thing, instead of trying to talking about what's in the news or politically or socially necessarily relevant, I guess. Important topics, things I find interesting. And I know you had listened to last Saturday's show, and what was it about? Anatomy of the State there. I hadn't read it before, and I read it, and you had commented something about wanting to chime in on that. So don't forget, if you had something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, let me do that first. So
okay, because I think I knew that we would bring it up, that we'd talk about it no matter what, because there's any number of points, and it's going to be lingering in my head no matter what. And I'd assume that you would end up watching it, listening to it, what have you, as well. So yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts.
So you were bringing up the point, Michael, and again, it's really a pleasure being on with you this month on this topic, because I'm going to be doing the third part of the Heart of the Matter. It's a 5-part series, and today it'll be about conceptual intellect. And I will give you more of a definition on that after I cover the topic that you did last time on the anatomy of the in the description of our world in which we relate to, and you're bringing up the mother and child relationship, okay, in our political system, okay, and you were applying it to the mother-child relationship, and there's a parasitic and a kind of dependency involved in that relationship. Well, I want to come at it from a medical perspective, and also that ties into your individual perspective, because they're directly related. But I want to make sure it's clarified, because this is a little bit of a semantics issue, because in terms of your description, Yeah, it's in your description. You were trying to show a symbiosis, meaning a friendly relationship where a shark allows a little suckerfish on its back and doesn't eat it because it's eating all the parasites and all the microorganisms that are on its back, and so it goes along for the ride. That's the symbiosis with that particular relationship. There's symbiosis with plants. You know, you've got lichen, for example. There's a symbiosis there where you've got the combination. And so, what I wanted to talk about is the symbiosis with our body and the child relationship with the mother, because in our culture, we are brought up to interpret that the child takes everything from the mother. Okay. In the case of a parasite feeds off of you as a living organism. Okay. And the we as a species require procreation. Parasites do not offer your body any benefit. Think of that. I'm going to make that broad statement first, but they do not offer you any benefit. In other words, if you've got a parasite, your body has to handle it and get rid of it. That is not self. But the child in the womb is self. In other words, it's part of our species. Okay? So bear with me while I finish the thought process. In Chinese medicine, which I often refer to as a medical model, there's a connection with the woman getting stronger with the child. Okay? Our culture does not look at it quite that way, although that is something that is very important in the relationship of the family unit, right? The disconnect that has been so indoctrinated in our culture that we've got terms like the male sperm donor, right? Not the father, but the male sperm donor, okay? Or the never present father, right? And the way that we were brought into this world is to have that male take care of the female during the pregnancy, petting the stomach, encouraging the woman to get what it needs, this beautiful, you know, what I'm perceiving anyway, connection that the mother and father have in bringing the child into the world, and it being a blessing, all right? That there's a energy exchange that's new for the family, for the two of them. They'll be getting a new energy, and that new energy encourages their development to be participating in the child's development, the child's discovery, the child's health, and being part of that is not a drain as much as it is a compatible understanding of that relationship. And you've had that with your wife, and it's a blessing. You were able to recognize that bringing up children was something that you were capable, competent, and prove to yourself that you could do it. You had that ability. You knew it somehow, but you didn't experience it. But you did make it so that it was a workable environment. And in that case, you compared that to the political environment of it being a drain on society, right? That there's a parasitic involvement of a drain on society, and you are correct. That parasite, and this is different from the child and mother and father relationship, and I don't mean just exclusively the mother relationship. I mean that the parasite is feeding on an environment that's suitable for it to grow, right? Toxoplasmosis, for example, is a parasite very common with pet owners that have cats, all right, feline. So if they're exposed to this parasite, are they reacting the same way in all cases? The answer is no. Some of us have a better capability of tolerating parasitic, if you want to call it infection, it is. If it gets in your gut, if it gets in your blood, and there's excrement, there's the feeding, and then there's the waste matter that comes from a parasite. Now, it differs in terms of the parasite draining your body of its resources. The mother is being fed, is feeding the embryo, and feeding the fetus. It's feeding that and nourishing, but the difference is that that is a compatible relationship. Whereas in a parasite, it's a draining relationship. Our government is parasitic. That is the difference, in that it is feeding on us. It is not offering much of anything, just a illusionary structure, and that we happen to fall into and operate with, and that it not only drains us, but it is also a toxic environment. Why is it a toxic environment? And I'll let you elaborate on that. It is because it does not offer, if you have a structure that you're operating from, like, for example, birth is supposed to take 9 months. That's the biological relationship, 9 months. And the birth is given, there's a time factor involved. What is draining, and I think you were trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong, trying to show the relationship of a parasitic involvement, is that there is a host and there is a parasite that requires the host to stay alive. In order for it to stay alive, it has to feed on it, and it has to also take away its resources of life resources, its energy resources, its ability to generate a healthy gut environment, a healthy blood environment, which then affects your mind. I perceive that you are trying to, and again, please clarify, that the parasitic involvement of isn't evil of itself. It is parasitic in nature of it drain its resources. It takes the minds of people in that process, the mind, because it tells them that they are not empowered. They have to depend upon something other than their individual needs. So if I made that clear in terms of making the distinction, then I believe that your point was absolutely correct, but I just wanted to give you my perspective. How do you feel about that?
No, as I was saying it, I absolutely knew we would be having this conversation because of the medical expertise that you have to offer to the conversation. And just to be clear, my referencing the child in the womb as a parasite is nothing new to my audience. That's part of the reason to do it, not because I go around doing it, but because it's a thing within the sort of libertarian anarchist communities, because they're arguing about the conversation about when does life start and these things, and so they're trying to quantify it and qualify it, and I agree with everything that you said about the value and the connection in these things, but I would also remind you that the baby doesn't appear simultaneously in a vacuum, right? There's an invading living organism that is injected into the person that creates, that combines with the environment, a good environment for it to grow in, for it to produce and make a baby. And if the mother doesn't expel the baby after about 9 months or so, the baby will consume all of her resources and I don't want to get graphic, but you get the idea. And during that process, the mother also has to increase her vitamin intake, increase her mineral, her food, everything, to compensate for the growth of the other individual too. So there's a reason why they make that conversation about the really the relative uh, point of it being a parasite. But you are absolutely correct in my point in making it, and I think in any reasonable point in making it, it is that it is a symbiotic relationship that develops naturally out of its environment. If the right conditions are introduced into the environment, it's a symbiotic relationship that will develop out of it, because there is some bacteria, some infection, some sperm, something looking, always looking, especially when we're talking about humans, and an opportunity to take advantage of a space and to fill a gap. And so my only point in it, of course, you know this, you listen to the show. If anybody that's listening now that didn't listen to the show, my point was in somebody else's comparisons of what the state is versus what we do sort of naturally. There's what we as humans do, and then there's what the state does, and one of those is a sort of natural economic function, which I completely agree with, and the other is a unnatural, and that was the only thing that I argued with, is the unnatural part, parasitic relationship. And I just argued that if you create the environment for it, and that would be an environment of prosperity, that would be an environment of where any one person has a little bit more than somebody else, and that person decides, well, there's somebody, either that person or some other person or persons decides, well, that's not right. You need to give some of that to me, and then I can give some of it to these people over there, or if you don't give it to those people over there, I'll harm you. I think it's very much a natural thing that we do. And again, my continued argument is that the distinction is our ability to make a moral distinction out of it, and to suggest to ourselves as individuals that it's not right to be a parasite off of somebody, that it's okay to be invited into the host for a period of time, take advantage of everything that you can, and that they're willing to give, and that they can give, but then you need to move out after about 9 months or so.
Well, and just a quick refinement on a term that you were using, that the organism, the being, invades the body. That would be refined by my terminology as welcomed into the body,
Yeah,
or
fair enough.
in,
It is
in
welcomed, yes,
it is welcomed.
but it is still foreign.
It is
And
it's
that's more the point than how it actually gets there. I'm assuming that it's invited in that sense, for sure, because we are talking about the intimate nature of that.
of the being. Yeah. Well, it's being invited, and it's suitable. Those are three terms that I just want to make sure that it's clarified, because this government is something that we inherited. You didn't invent it. I
Oh,
didn't invent it.
definitely, yeah.
Okay. And we have to figure out a way of navigating through a completely parasitic government. This is a government that is invaded, it is diseased, it is draining, and the structure that it works from isn't necessarily bad. It's just that it's being used in a way that it is incredibly incompetent, and it is destructive to the point of literally causing massive death. I mean, why would you see wars going on? Okay. And the structure itself needs refinement. It has to be redefined in a way where you drop all the chains that have been causing you to give your power away. That's where you come in. That's where you would say, okay, I'm redefining how we as individuals work in a structure, but is that structure, and is the word anarchy appropriate by removing the head leader and putting something more appropriate, adequate, and effective in its place? That's where you excel with, because you've already redefined the terms. and you made it clear enough where people can pull away from the system gradually enough so it's not going to collapse and cause all kinds of collateral damage, but do it first by acknowledging what you're dealing with and the state of mind of people that are running this thing, which is completely inadequate and appropriate and inappropriate, and it's diseased. And so when you can identify with those markers, then you, because I've been pulling away since just after med school, I realized that I was not operating in a functional medical system. I was working in a dysfunctional medical system aimed at profit before people, aimed at not solution oriented, but it's mired with confusing terms. And these terms have to be redefined. And that's where I excel at. I was able to extrapolate information that was appropriate, adequate, and I was able to redefine that. But working with a public that is so used to hearing terms that disempower them, they will then adopt them as being the acceptable way. And that's got to stop medically and stop politically. And so that's where you have a talent, if you will, or a kind of insight that goes razor sharp into the point rather than, kind of flounder around with some ideas that you're not happy with. I'm happy, but I also know that I'm dealing with a dysfunctional system that will not change until they're forced, because they don't understand anything but force. You can't do anything but if until you literally take them physically out of their position, it won't change. There's no changing them. Okay. So anyway, that's elaborating a little bit on your point, but how do you feel even further? Please.
That was the whole point of my reading Anatomy of the State and analyzing it and looking at it from that anarchist perspective, because there's a lot of these guys that write about things like that who are not anarchists, or who won't admit that they're anarchists, or are their actions belie their claim to anything akin to anarchist, because they are still trying to find compromise. And I think that's the difference between the anarchist and the libertarian, is that the libertarian is interested in some sort of compromise, whereas I'm not. I should be left to do the things that I do, period, as long as I'm not violating other people and their property. And that's it. There shouldn't be any other rule set forth in society, particularly. Now, when you get down onto the community level and people inviting other people into a community, or people being born into a community and being accepted within it, that's up to the community. And the bigger those communities get, the less likely it is that we are as people to accept it, to be able to handle it mentally and physically. The property, the space that we're on, can't handle it, and the management can't handle it because it's too big. There's just too much, and they're trying to manage too much, and they're trying to do too much for too many people, because they're trying to be something to everyone, and that ends up making them be nothing to anyone. And that's our government. It's nothing to anyone but themselves. They benefit from it. The rest of us are left to consider whether it works or not, and whether there might be some other way that we could do something, or either that, or we're just going to our jobs. And so, yeah, that was the whole point of just analyzing that and looking at it from that perspective, because those guys, a lot of those guys, they're looking for that compromise, and I'm not. And so I wanted to see if this particular person, Murray Rothbard, looked for compromise, and he didn't necessarily seem to. In fact, he pointed out in a couple of places where he he quoted other people and went on to suggest that while he was quoting these people, it's kind of like a modern day a retweet is not an endorsement. He kind of goes on to say, while I'm suggesting that this guy's right about this, he goes on in his career to try to find some status method of manipulating things that'll work into the theory instead of just letting the theory prove itself. And so he's wrong about doing that. You can't do that. It's not going to work. The answer is the first answer they came up with. There's no manipulation of reality that government can give that makes reality better, because it doesn't offer anything in the end. It doesn't create anything. It claims that it has jurisdiction over a territory and peoples, and within that it can validate and justify anything that it does in the name of its territory to protect itself. And then it's beyond, and as soon as that happens, you're beyond the ability of the individual or a mass of the individuals through the system to affect the system, because the system must remain in place more so than the Republicans or the Democrats. It's the Republicans' fault this time. It's the Democrats' fault this time. But the prices still keep going up. The economy still keeps going down. They keep claiming that they're doing something different, but they keep doing the same things, even though one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. And where do you go from there? Well, you build your parallel systems, like we've talked about. You get these ideas out there. You spend some time doing, which we got to get into. I could go on about this forever, and we will again. We'll pick it up again. But I do want to get to the heart of the matter stuff. But that's why we do it, right? That's why we do something like this, and why we talk. We talked the first time about heart fulfillment and satisfaction, and then the second time we talked about sort of fear and forgiveness. And now you want to bring us into this conceptual intellect thing, and I'm curious to know what you mean by conceptual intellect, because this is one of those situations where, yeah, I know what the words are. I know what both of those words mean, but what do they mean to somebody when you put them together? And so that's your cue, Doc.
No, and it's great. We will do a part 2 to this, because I've been taking some notes on where you do draw the line. And,
okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can follow up with it. Yeah.
I will do that, and we'll go more into it. Okay, so but let's first of all define intellect for a moment here, because if you're just to do a regular dictionary definition, it's the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regard to abstract or academic matters. That's just a Google dictionary search, okay? I say the intellect is that which you understand in the form of symbols. This is a hand. No doubt about it, right? If I show you a hand and I call this a hand, you identify the symbol of the hand and use English to use the word to describe what this is. I got 5 fingers. I've got the Fellner eminence. I've got the back of the hand, the dorsum, the back. They got the, movement, everything about the hand. Now, if I use that definition, that which we understand in the form of symbols, make a concept or conceptualize what it is that which we are using in the form of symbols, be it our verbiage, our vocabulary, our understanding that, this is a house, that over there is the dog, whatever it is that we understand and put form to in the form of our intellect, the symbol. Now, if I am to give you a little story, let's say we fortunately get some rain out here in Colorado. Oh, it'd be great if we did. And I went out in the road there, and it's raining on me, and I'm singing in the rain, and I'm so happy. And I say, okay, I'm wet enough, and I'm thinking house. Now, I could walk into my house, but I'm not. I'm thinking house. I'm thinking 4-bedroom house, 2 baths, large kitchen. It's got, a dining area. It's got fireplace and all this stuff. I'm thinking those things. They're all in my head. That's the intellect at work, because I'm thinking house and I'm still getting wet, right? In other words, the thought of a house is not a house. It's just a thought. And it's good to think, but the thoughts, and boy, there sure are a lot of people thinking out there. A lot of, the thoughts are running the show, right? But when you understand that what most people do is they confuse the intellect with their feeling body, they get locked in. And I'll go over that whole thing here. Most of the time when I test patients out, they're at conflict with themselves. They're at conflict because their thoughts and their feelings are not together. They're not thinking and feeling the same thing. They may think that it's a good idea to eat nutritionally. They may think it's a good idea to, take care of their yard and pay attention to, their child's needs and things like that. Okay, that's the thought process where it makes sense to do something, but their feelings have been programmed into them. And the feelings are programmed from when you're born to typically 7 years old. This has been proven. You're neurologically developing in your environment. And in fact, the Catholic Church says, give us your child for the first 7 years, then we don't care what you do with them. Because they've programmed that child to talk this way, think this way, pray this way, act this way, kneel in the pew, whatever it is that they do that is ritualistic to what their system is. And it is a belief system, just like the Protestants or the Baptists or the Jews or the Muslims, doesn't matter. They're all systems and they're created by humans, right? They're man-made systems. And when you get the intellect, and I can, by the way, distill religion down to 2 words. Would you like to know what those 2 words are, Michael? Paying attention. All religion is about paying attention. And the religion I participate in life, and I would say the only real religion that we're born into is life itself. And that all these systems have what they have to offer, but if you are in that position that says that I can take or leave whatever's being offered me because I'm one individual that has the ability to reason and make sense. And I use my intellect to make sense of things. That, to me, defines me as a man of spirit. I'm not an agnostic, atheist, any of those things. I am saying I am a man of spirit, which means that I am participating in life. Now you know where I'm coming from. And I can take, that makes sense in Christianity. That makes sense over here in this part. But for me, I am going to adopt it or use it. I might borrow it for a while, that idea, do unto others as you do unto do unto yourself, right? And so you got that golden rule thing. And I adopt it. I say, okay, does that work for me? And say, yeah, no, that works for me. So you end up creating an environment where you're navigating how you go through life, right? By using your intellect, that which we form in symbols, and your feeling body, that which programmed responses. Now, let's say that I feel bad. Let's say that something makes me feel bad, and it's about, say, for example, I stepped on my sister's toes. And I felt bad because it was an accident. But I said, "Are you all right? Are you okay? Did you get hurt? You did that? How dare you? But she forgave me, and I was an accident, and we made up, and that was that. But what happens when you feel bad when you hurt somebody, right? You hurt somebody's feelings. You hurt somebody intentionally. You're hurting them out of, and this is back to harming another and harming property or stealing property. That goes back to your philosophy on this anarchy thing, is you don't steal from people, you don't harm them, you don't create an environment that is going to cause war or disruption. In other words, the intellect makes a moral decision, and I live by morals, a moral decision whether or not you are going to participate in the advancement, the helping of your species, or you have the other side, which is anti-life, in harming somebody else to get what you need by your own thought process, right? Your own thinking, what you need. And that's the ego. Ego is self-image. So when I talk about conceptual intellect, what I'm talking about, that which we form into symbols and create our environment. How are you following me so far?
Yeah, yeah, I'm there with you. I get you. I think that's an accurate description of just the everything about it. You're talking about just sort of visualizing things, and but they don't make them happen. Yeah, that's clearly the difference between what's going on in here and what's going on out here with the physical world. So yeah, I jive with it.
The thought. Yeah, the thought process. So what I wanted to do is go deeper into that, because what I'm wanting to achieve is a freedom by way of breaking the conflict between your physical responses in the body, the programmed feeling responses, right? The physical needs, the feeling responses, and the developed intellect. Whether you understand Chinese in your vocabulary, or you understand Hebrew, or you understand English, or whatever, it doesn't matter. That is what you understand in form of symbols. So the words give form to your world. The higher your intellect, the higher your ability to control your world. Now, what happens if you have a high intellect? And what are these people called, Michael? Intellectuals, right? Yes, they're called intellectuals. You develop that which you form into symbols, and you have a high vocabulary. But what I have found is that these high intellectuals may have a very highly developed intellect, but their feelings are keeping them programmed to sabotage success and satisfaction, because they're programmed not, typically, this is a typical response, they're programmed not to feel like they deserve it. So what's the reaction that you get? Overcompensation. You overreact because you see yourself as being one who acquires monetary value, property value, all these different possessions and so forth. The more that you can control people, right? Those are ways, they're primitive, but they're programmed responses that are in the feeling body. They're not under the control of the intellect. Because if you are hurting somebody, you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody's feelings, you don't know what you're doing. You're not in control. Those feeling responses override anything that makes something better, makes something more appropriate, adequate, and effective for the living situation. Now, if you're defending yourself, that means that you are making a proper response to being attacked. And you need to have that awareness, because if you're here to serve humanity, you have to be prepared to fight them too. In other words, you're not going to allow the lower levels of awareness, the consciousness, to harm you, because no one would harm you if they knew what they were doing. And if they're trying to harm you, and they're doing whatever they can to find a way to steal from you, manipulate you, make you weaker, whatever, that's not rising in awareness. That's stealing. That's theft. That is taking away from your being and your need to make things better. So we're in a world that lives in what? Duality. You have right, wrong, left, right, up, down. All of this is about duality. So that if you live in your intellect, you live in your duality. So let me expound on that. I wanted to be able to use words to induce the reader or the listener into states of mental disposition and revelatory realization faster than the intellect could deduce, sense them out. Okay? Systematically or semantically, I began playing with the juxtaposition of philosophically ingrained values I wanted to coax, then seductively ambush the reader and listener, their perspective into perceiving through more diverse, expansive lenses of mentally emotive positioning, which is to say that I want to use the intellect to direct you out of a place of being imprisoned. You're locked into that feeling and intellectual mechanism, and there's ways of breaking that pattern so that your feelings and your intellect are combined without conflict. And that is freedom. To me, that's living in the source, which is your heart. That's the fourth center. Okay. And I'll talk more about that in our next meeting. Okay. How much time do we have, by the way?
You say like 13 minutes or so.
Okay, that gives me enough time to get launched into this. Okay, so for instance, you can only think of being right in relation to the possibility of not being right, which you might call wrong. You can only think of being happy, quote unquote, in relation to the possibility of not being happy, which you might call miserable. On and on it goes. You think of something your intellect implies. Its lack of pseudo opposite. This creates a lot of pain for people. Okay, can you see that, Michael? If you got to be wrong, right? Okay, I say that you're not wrong if you don't have to be right. You can use the best information that you have available to you at the time, make the best evaluation, and proceed with that information until something better comes along, and then you redefine those things, right? That's what we're here for, right? Okay, so we establish that. Now, you think you want to be happy, really, really happy. Now, this implies that you're not happy, that your happiness exists somewhere else outside and away from you. But since happiness is such an enticing idea, you start contemplating its possibilities. To see the forest, you have to pull back from the trees, right? You know the saying, right? Can't see the forest through the trees, for the trees, that old saying, right? To think about how happy you can be, your thoughts separate you more and more from where you've conceived yourself to be. Okay, you perceive yourself to be one thing and you're in this particular place at that moment. Okay, if you contemplate the possibilities with enough determined enthusiasm, you can imagine yourself as the most successful, accomplished, beloved, extraordinary, holy, and blessed person on the planet. What a delicious projection. But where are you? You're still in the same place of lacking happiness. And you projected happiness to be far away. And do you have what it takes to get there and win the prize? What snares, traps, and monstrous demons lay in wait for you? Well, whether it's a momentary flash of vague inspiration, not quite taking root in your mind, or full-blown daydream spectacular that you milked for 6 hours, you can't contemplate it forever, right? There's that song that comes to mind. Dream, 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 dream. I'm dreaming my life away. It's a great, that's what I'm talking about right here, okay? And then from the other side of dualistic contemplation, if you can not only exist in a state of being relatively unhappy, well, it becomes just as easy to start thinking that you might not only not get what you want, but in addition, you could possibly lose what little you have. Things could go from bad to worse. So you're thinking in the other direction. Now, I see you nodding because you're relating to this, because we all have that duality thing going on, right? And if you're caught into the intellect and the feeling responses, you're programmed by working off the triangle of the three the physical needs, the sensations, physical sensations, the feeling responses, and the conceptual intellect. And you haven't been able to break free. And most people work off of that principle of those three levels until, and this is what I'll be talking about more in the next meeting we have in September, until you reach the fourth level of consciousness. Okay, that's what we're excited about, because when you get past the intellect imprisoning you, keeping you locked in, then you live in the fourth center, the fourth level, which is your heart center. And there you can't be fooled, because the dualism goes away. You are then operating from the heart, which means that you're experiential, you're moving into places that will make sense to you. If they make sense to you, you want to experiment, you want to try a relationship, for example, because you want to learn from it and learn more about yourself, but you're operating from a place of the heart. Where is that sharing going to make it better? It looks good. I'm attracted to this other person. They seem to relate to me. They're talking with me. They seem to want to be interested, and I can rub their shoulders and they can rub mine, and we can make dinner together and all this kind of wonderful stuff. So it's a complementary compatibility, right? You see the relationship, but at some point it starts to turn the other direction. You're not seeing things the same, or you might find that they don't agree with you on all fronts. Well, is it time to just jump away immediately? Well, maybe not. Maybe just pull away and say, I need to reevaluate my situation, right? But you went into it with your heart, because the heart wants to experience more of itself and expand and bring in more of what it needs to grow. We're all here growing, right? If you're not growing from an infant, your physical needs are being met. You get up to the teenage years where you're discovering your sexuality, or you're discovering, things that interest you, like maybe music or history or whatever. You're in a place where if you're living in your heart, it'll never hurt you. Even if you move into a place where you're experimenting and taking part of something that's new, and you're trying to integrate that, you have three steps in the process of learning. One is the discovery stage. You say, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a violin and it makes these beautiful sounds. All right, I want to learn how to play it. Okay, so you pick it up and you go, oh my gosh, squeak, squawk. Your fingers aren't making the right connection. You go, oh my gosh, this is hard. What do I need to do to make it sound beautiful? And then you find the simple things that you need to do, find the scales and how to play with the right kind of temperament, the right kind of movement, and right kind of flexibility and energy to apply on the bow, and so on. So that's mechanical. You learn how to mechanically, that's number two, integrate the way of playing something. And then you learn the scale. That's where it becomes yours. You do what you want with it. You put your signature on it. You can play the fiddle, and you're playing it in the way that you want it, with the right expression, kind of thing. And you're getting that beautiful sound that you make with your own quality of sound. Now, that's what I'm talking about. You have to go through the three stages of learning to understand through the intellect, which we have to understand the form of symbols, to make it so that we can control our environment. And that's the launching off into more of what is going to be coming for our next meeting, because the intellect, the feeling responses, the physical sensations, once you understand those three things, you then go about the process of breaking the pattern and reprogramming what it is that's more in the fifth session. I'll tell you more about that in the next session. But the fifth session is the reprogramming stage, where you see something that's more appropriate, adequate, and effective. Let's say it's anarchy. Let's say people say, hey, I get what Michael's telling me. That makes sense. I'm going to take in my individual power back and stop giving it to people that don't know what they're doing with it. What a concept. Wow. And the same thing goes medically with your health. And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm thinking the whole time. Of course, I'm just letting you go because we munched up a bit of time there talking about other things, but it's all relative. It all relates, absolutely, and that's exactly what I was thinking as you're telling me about it. That's you described what I've done with my existence in terms of just following my heart. And following that joy and that bliss, and knowing that you can never go wrong in that, as long as you're not violating your own standards of morality and letting other people do what they do. That's why the anarchy is so compatible. That's why libertarianism should be compatible. In theory, it's why liberalism should be compatible. But you also mentioned in there ultimately how those feelings, that triangle of feelings, is what keeps liberals from being effective, people making effective change in society. It keeps them in that emotional construct instead of in that intellectual emotional construct, instead of outside of it, actually realizing that what they're doing within the system isn't actually helping people. Isn't doing anything. It's not changing people's lives for a positive, that it's more disruptive. And they should be the first ones to take their energy out of any government. And then if you want to get started on the conservatives, they should take themselves out of it, because it's not conservative, it's socialist. So there shouldn't be any government. They should all be happily doing what they're doing individually to make a reality and make their health. It's also tied. That's why I like talking with you. That's why I've liked having all these chats over the years, because that mental, physical health and your space in reality are tied together inexorably.
Yes. And I don't know if you realize just how much you were simpatico with what we're trying to achieve medically, because you have to remember that my job as a healer and facilitator is to empower you. I'm not here to just give you all the science that justifies what I'm doing to you. Science is fine, it measures things, but you can't worship those things. You can't worship government. You can't worship systems. Systems are there in place to serve you. And if you can wear the robes or go on Sundays to, whatever, and you know what you're doing, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But it's my job to make sense. And if I give you the tools, you have the responsibility to use them, and use them to upgrade where you're at if you want to choose to. Because if I have the unmitigating gall to say this is so, Michael, then I like being challenged, because I am clear on how that process works. And if I'm to say that, then we have the best opportunity to change what we're dealing with. And with all these crazy, stupid systems that are just drag lines endlessly, we've got to stop it. And it's my job to say it stops here, and I'm ready.
All right, Dr. Lloyd, always appreciate you. You're just a great person to talk to. Your heart is in the right place. You're in that fourth space, and we'll get there. The conversations will continue, and it's always it's so fun to be able to do it every time, because it is so natural, and everybody should be. There's nothing confusing. There's some fun, flurry language in there, that's sort of fun with words, but they're not confusing words, and they're things that relate to us as individuals. And I like how you can just bring that out of those conversations and present that to people and give them new avenues for help. So I appreciate you and always enjoy chatting with you, Dr. Lloyd. If you out there, you're listening, if you just one person you think would benefit from all this conversation we're having, share this with them and click that like button, and we'll see you on the next Toward Anarchy. Till then, take care.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.